away from that program that I could grasp and understand complicated topics in a short period of time and be functional in terms of executing on that knowledge and understanding of that complicated topic in a short period of time. And that has borne out in my experience with Ag West Farm Credit Services. Also, after getting the MBA, volunteering for a lot of different nonprofits like the Community Foundation of Snohomish County, the Risk Management Association of Puget Sound, and some nonprofit work I do in aviation as well, youth development and aviation. But the one constant was that level of confidence that the MBA, Western Washington MBA program provided me in terms of being able to ask great questions, quickly understand complicated topics that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but also being able to add value to the discussion in terms of the questions that you're asking, the perspective that you bring to the table, and then just understanding, hey, what is my assessing a situation and saying, what is the value I can contribute here, and then making sure that you contribute that value. So that's what I would like to share, Mark, and I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. That was awesome. I really enjoyed having Scott in the class. He was the type of person that really sort of like he was sort of saying, he's got a talent of connecting people and sort of connecting thoughts from different things. And that's and as you were talking about the experience, it sort of reminded me of how a lot of times, I would say in graduate programs generally, but MBA programs specifically, you probably learn more from your classmates than you do actually from us professors. And so I think Scott did a nice job explaining that. Thank you, Scott. That was really great. Our next speaker is going to be Ruby Acampo Bruders, who was part of our cohort in Everett that just graduated this past December. And so take it away, Ruby.
Thank you, Mark. So hi, everyone. I am Ruby, and I recently finished my last class winter quarter, so I can officially close what was an incredible and challenging chapter. At the start of 2021, I decided to do something that would forever change my life and the future of my family. As a mom of two very young kids who were 2 and 3 when I started the program, I realized I missed learning. And prior to having kids, my background was in criminal law. So I found myself longing for that day-to-day stimulation and challenge. And the weekend program allowed me to balance these multiple roles between being a parent and a student at a pace that worked for the season of my life that I was in. And I am glad that the weekend program was an option, because I found myself alongside other parents and professionals, all of who were some of the most brilliant individuals I've ever met. And many of them worked for big name companies like Boeing, Amazon, Smartsheet, and PACCAR. And the coolest thing about sharing a space with them was the fact that I could hang and challenge their thoughts and lean into each other's strengths when it was time to collaborate. And during this process, I also realized that you don't have to be working for any of the big corporate companies to determine your success. Very simply, you could be someone like a stay-at-home parent who has that desire to continue to learn, grow, and just become a better version of yourself. So undoubtedly, the program gave me a competitive edge. A running theme throughout the program is to evaluate businesses and make recommendations that would provide them with competitive advantage, sustainable growth, and overall profitability. And we learned about all the several mechanisms and strategies that model competitive advantage and mitigate risks associated within the respective industry. And during my time in the program, my parents, they were busy building a winery over in Leavenworth. So this presented an opportunity to evaluate the business using the knowledge and tools that I was now equipped with. And the capstone course beautifully integrated all of the frameworks, and I applied them to the new family winery with the intention to give the business some competitive advantage. And I knew what questions to ask, and in return, I was able to help two people who I hold very dear to my heart. And the same way we approach businesses and look at ways to improve their viability is the same way you should look at yourself in terms of potential and future. From a competitive advantage perspective, the program allowed me to earn a master's degree, which accounts for only about 14% of the overall population, and all the while in the thick of raising young children. In terms of sustainable growth, the culmination of classes in the program helped me develop a strong foundation of knowledge and tools that I can build on and will continue to do so. And then in terms of overall profitability, because of these reasons, the value that I will contribute going forward is simply worth more. So while I can officially close what was an incredible and challenging chapter, I am excited and better prepared to see what the next chapter has in store because of Western.
That was great. Ruby, thank you so much. One of the reasons I wanted Ruby to talk was, well, two reasons. Number one, she was like one of the best writers I've ever had in the class. So here's a little secret. Don't tell anyone this, but I often use the same cases from class to class, and because I like the cases. And Ruby's analysis was so well organized and well written. It kind of stopped me in my tracks a couple of times. You're like, wow, this is like, I've read this one a lot, and this one's really, really good. So Ruby, I just wanted to say thank you for the effort you did. And then the other thing, I know I've probably mentioned this in class once or twice, but and I know you weren't the only working parent in the program, but a very important moment in my life, looking back on it, was when I was in elementary school and my mom went back to get her part-time master's degree at Boston University. And so I think the impact, seeing her doing her schoolwork, really sort of motivated me. And I'm not sure I would necessarily be on, I'm sure I would not be on the same path that I am now if it hadn't been seeing her do that. So for all our prospective students that are out there who are like, oh, this is going to be really hard. I've got kids at home. It is going to be hard. That's very true. But I think that like the experience of you doing it, it'll be even better having the kids as part of that journey. So I just want to say, Ruby, thanks for everything you've done, and thanks for speaking tonight.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Our next speaker is going to be Brent Kuhn from Boeing, and he is an engineer with the 737 program. Take it away, Brent.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
All right, so sorry, I'm still having video difficulties, so I'm gonna have
That's
to
okay.
talk
He's
without the
incredibly
video.
handsome. Just imagine like the handsome.
I got all dressed up too, because I know Mark likes to look good, and so sorry about that. So hey, yeah, thanks for having me. So a little bit about my story. So Boeing Company. So I came into the Boeing Company directly out of college, and really, invested my life and my career into the Boeing Company. And I came into the production engineering skill. I was an engineer for about 7 years or so, and then moved into leadership positions. And ultimately, about 15 or 16 years of my career, I was a senior manager in production engineering, running multiple organizations across programs. And we used to use a term within our engineering teams and kind of how we wanted to grow our engineers. And we referred to them as T-shaped engineers. And T-shape being, you have the vertical line of a T, which is really your depth of your knowledge. So a lot of engineers have a knowledge in a certain commodity, whether it be flight control, structures, production engineering, whatever it may be. And so we really want that technical depth. But we also want our engineers to understand the value stream and work across the value stream. And the T shape at the top, so the horizontal line is the breadth. And so making sure we had depth and breadth across our engineering teams was really important at the time. And I realized through a lot of the discussions, with teams and the kind of the vision of what we wanted our teams to look out for, that we just didn't want to focus on a commodity. We wanted them focused across the life cycle of the airplane. That, I did some self-reflection and said, I'm not a T-shaped leader. I have a lot of depth in the skills that I'm working in. I've moved up through the same organization across multiple programs. I have a lot of knowledge, and I've done a lot of different things in my career. I've traveled the world, had many assignments, did a lot of different things, but I was still in the vertical line of the T. And it really hit me that said, if I'm going to talk about having a T-shaped engineering team, I need to be a T-shaped leader. And that's what really turned me to saying, I need to do something different. And, all my time was focused in Boeing. Like I said, I lived and breathed it, knew a lot about the company, what I did every day, what I wanted to do every day. But my perspective wasn't broad enough. I didn't have enough breadth. And so at that point is when I was really looking at pursuing an MBA. And then it started to look at, I heard a couple themes around, how the program fit and what the schedules and things like that. I was really interested in Western for a couple reasons. One is I needed to hold myself accountable to an in-person schedule. I really wanted to have something that was not only necessarily convenient from a schedule perspective, but efficient with my time. And with that, making sure that I wasn't getting stuck in traffic some days going to different universities, and therefore I wouldn't necessarily hold myself accountable to the schedule. So I was really interested in the Western program for the way it was structured, the in-person presence, as well as the kind of the schedule across the 2 years. And I'll tell you, I'm really glad I did it. There's a couple of things, and I'm going to chime into lean into what Scott talked about, is really around the confidence. So if I go look at, where I was back then to where I am now, even though I was in a position that gave me a lot of autonomy, I was able to set strategic direction. I was able to make business decisions. I was, able to give organizational priorities and direction and things like that. It was really from the horizontal line of the T. I didn't have the perspective of across other companies. Mark mentioned business case analysis. That's something I learned a ton from across the program. A lot of HBR articles are, they not only give you a lot of insight into what companies are going through, but they give you a lot of insight into what to look for when you are making certain decisions and all the different variables that come into play. And they also tell you there's not always one single right answer, right? And not having all the information, and there may not be the right answer, but you use whatever you have at your fingertips to make the best decision possible, and to have a strategic look across, specifically making decisions. The program really helped me kind of walk through, hey, if we have a problem, here's some things to go look for. Or if we're in this situation, here's some things that could have happened that got us here, and here's some things that we can do to potentially move us in a different direction, in the right direction. And I'll tell you, the presence that I feel I'm able to bring to not only my teams, but also the leadership team on the 737 is really all about the confidence I received through the program, as well as, I was out of school for a long time. I was in Boeing, I was out of school, and just being able to, get through the schedule, get through the coursework, working with the cohort, to me is just fantastic. You learn a lot of, you basically become a family along the way, and you get to learn a lot about what people said. Mark said you learn more from your classmates. In many ways you do. You spend a lot of time, in breaks and at lunch and at dinner and things like that, learning about each other. And that helps shapes us all. And not a lot of people get to have that experience to be able to gel like that. And so that was really important, as well as impactful to myself. And as far as how it impacted my career, I truly believe the confidence that I received, as well as being having more breadth, as I mentioned on that vertical line of the or horizontal line of the T. I ultimately got to a level of during the program, I was promoted to a director on the back then as a director within production engineering and the fabrication division. I'm now currently on the 737 program, and although I was on that path, I felt at the time, the MBA gave me two things. One, it actually gave me, if you think about competitiveness amongst your peers, it gave me a competitive edge. And two, it gave me the confidence to know that when I do make that next step, I'm ready. And anyway, really is a meaningful program to me. I learned a lot, I developed a lot, and grew through the process, and ultimately am better for it today. That's all, Mark.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Brent, thank you so much. That was just what we wanted to hear. That Brent just had in a lot of ways, Brent is sort of there's no reason you would know this, but I was a history major in college. I like history, and I've always been interested in sort of the history of business education. And so while we have lots of different types of students, Brent is sort of the sort of what the MBA was originally created for, which was engineers who had been in their career for a while, who then see that they need to have a more sort of broad-based management education so that they can take that next sort of leadership role within their company. And so I always like Brent because he's sort of the prototypical. Again, he's not the only type, but his story is kind of like what the MBA was all about from the beginning. But so that was great. Brent, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next guest is also from the Boeing Corporation, and she is the global manager for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and her name is Megan Wells. So take it away, Megan.
Thank you. So as Mark said, I'm a senior manager for global equity, diversity, and inclusion at Boeing. But when I started the MBA program, I was actually in a project management role supporting an IT implementation for HR. So quite a bit different than what I was doing at the time. But just to take us back a little bit further than that, I'm actually a two-time Western grad, and I finished my undergraduate in business administration I had to look it up because it's been so long ago now, 2011 at Western. And I absolutely loved it. And so when I was considering an MBA, and I knew that I wanted to do something in person because I didn't think I would do well in a virtual environment, and I really wanted that in-person connection, I was ecstatic to hear that Western had an in-person option in Everett. Because like Ruby, I also had two fairly young kids. I was working full time, and I needed something that I could compartmentalize a bit more than something that would completely consume all of my evenings and leave very little time for my family. But the reason that I ended up doing my MBA is probably a little bit different than most folks. Honestly, when I first started looking into it, it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm probably at a point in my career where from a talent development standpoint, it's time that I just go get an MBA so that I can check all the boxes when we're looking at talent development decisions. Which, not that isn't true, but it was also fairly short-sighted of me in terms of the overall value of an MBA. Honestly, I wasn't sure how much more value an MBA was going to bring, given that I already had a background in business administration and was working within an HR function with most of my background as an HR generalist. And I was really happy to say that even with that background, it was incredibly helpful. And I took so much more out of it after having had some industry experience than when I was in accounting and in finance and in stats classes that I really did not enjoy or appreciate during my undergrad. Things finally started clicking in terms of like, oh, right. Like I vaguely remember us talking about this during my undergraduate program, but now I can really see how it's applied, both in the case studies and in the real world within my own company. And so that for me was kind of a big aha. Talking a little bit about kind of my classmates, it's interesting because we did have a smaller class. We were the first one when we started going every year for the weekend MBA program. And we were pretty split, I think 50-50 on large corporation and then other different organizations, some quite large and some smaller, which was really nice. And then COVID happened right in the middle of my MBA as we were finishing kind of year 1 and going into year 2. And that was really challenging and absolutely validated my initial decision to do an MBA that was in person, because it was a very different experience. Even though the professors were still great and pivoted really, really quickly to still provide a high quality educational experience, I really missed having that in-person time with my cohort and with the new cohort that was coming in, who I never even got to meet in person because of COVID happening and shutting everything down. So that for me was nice, because it just was like, okay, yep, I definitely made the right decision in terms of both the type of MBA, how it was structured, and then the value that I was also getting from those other in-person participants. Some other highlights, I think, in terms of what I learned, I really appreciated our info systems class and our marketing classes, because it felt much more applied than anything that I had done as an undergraduate. In many instances, I feel like this program balances theory and academic knowledge, and then the application of practical tools and resources in your field, whatever that ends up being. And I really, given that this is a executive MBA program, that's exactly what I was looking for and would expect. And I felt like it was really well done in terms of balance. The info systems course in particular sticks out for me, because I remember on the first day of class, the instructor saying, I'm not teaching this to you as IT professionals, I'm teaching this to you as future C-suite leaders. And it was like, wow, like that's a big switch flip from, you know, a traditional approach to teaching information systems, right? And so it was really about, how do you help make strategic decisions for the business as it relates to information systems and just the connectivity of all of these different pieces of the internal life of an organization. It's really critical. And so that was fascinating to me. Marketing was great. There's a lot of things Ruby kind of mentioned as well around being able to apply those same tools and resources to yourself and your own development and your own branding, as well as business strategy. And regardless of where you are in business, if any of you are not working in business, but you're planning to, any project that you're working, you are doing marketing for in some way, shape, or form. You're selling those ideas to leaders, and you're having to support business cases to define those different outcomes and objectives. And so that's critical regardless of what field you're specifically in business. Lastly, I think the capstone was really helpful as well. I still have all the different drawings that we did in that class that map through the different steps that you would take from a strategic analysis perspective. And honestly, I would have felt comfortable leaving the MBA program and going into consulting, either for an organization or for myself personally, which was something that I was considering as a career pivot at the time. I did end up deciding to stay with Boeing, obviously, because the other thing that the MBA program did that I did not expect to get out of it was it really provided an opportunity for introspection, especially kind of in that last quarter, and reaffirmed that doing something that you love and that you're passionate about is never the wrong career decision. And if you're passionate about something and you love it, it's going to work out really well. And I was honestly really scared from a career perspective about moving from a pretty high profile project leader role and an HR generalist role where I was very, very well respected, into what I felt was an area of the business that didn't get a lot of visibility, and I didn't necessarily see a lot of leadership growth or progression within the organization. But I moved from a senior individual contributor into a senior manager within a year of entering that organization. And for the Boeing folks on the phone, skipping several levels of management as I did that, which is pretty unheard of in many functions, but especially within HR. And so that's something that absolutely would not have happened. I probably would still be in management, if I'm being honest, but I would probably be a first line level leader, definitely not a senior manager, and definitely not with the visibility or level of responsibility that I have today if I hadn't completed my MBA program. So hope that helps. Thanks.
That was awesome. Thanks, Megan. There's a lot of times in my life when I think about issues and I'm like, what would Megan Wells do here? And then and thinking about how she thinks about things definitely helps me with this type of those types of things. And then the other thing that Megan said that sort of struck me, that I think it's something that we all try and do within the MBA program, is really sort of prepare our students for that pretty senior level position. It might not happen right away, but it's definitely going to happen. When those case analyses that Ruby did such a good job on, the thing that I always try and explain to the students, and the Everett students get it better than probably any other students I teach, is the idea that when you're writing your recommendation based on the Harvard Business School case study that I assigned, you're not writing this as if you are a student proving to the professor you read the case. You are writing this in a sort of in a role-playing sort of way, in an improv almost sort of way. You are writing this as the CEO or this chief marketing officer writing to the board or presenting to the board of directors as to why this strategic decision should be done this particular way. And it's an uncomfortable way to think if you haven't thought that way before. But the goal should be that that's the way you're going to, that's the way your career is going. And so the fact that you can sort of practice and role play that within the MBA, I think is really, really valuable for our students. And so our final speaker, but not final for any other reason, just because, I don't know, I picked them last, but is Vincenzo Bianco. He's also at Boeing and was part of Ruby's cohort that just graduated this past December, and very smart guy. And I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about the program. So take it away, Vince.
Thank you, Mark. Can you see me?
Yep, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. All right. I don't know how I'm going to follow those great testimonials there, but I'll try my best. I'm Vince Bianco. I'm currently a propulsion manager at Boeing. And prior to that, and when I started the MBA, I was a structural engineer at Boeing. And my whole career was as an engineer. But when I decided to do this MBA, I was at a point in my career where I said, well, I can continue on in the technical path, or should I continue on as the leadership path? And I've always been interested in the leadership path, but I didn't know much about the business side of companies and corporations. So this MBA, when I started researching it, the Western MBA seemed to fit and check off all the marks that I was looking for. I was looking for something that provided in-person classes, because I felt I needed to be held accountable. I believe, like Brent was saying, I've done some virtual classes in the past, and they didn't seem to fit well with me. So the in-person classes were very important. The location was great. It was close to home, was close to work. And I just felt I was more of an interpersonal person. So, I would do better interacting with people in person than on screen. But COVID happened, and our first year we actually did all remote. And as Megan mentioned, the professors are great at accommodating the classes and modifying the course to accommodate the virtual. But the second year when we started in person, it was like, yeah, this is where I belong. I belong here in person. Just interacting with people. I got to know my cohort very well. I don't even consider them cohorts anymore. I consider them all friends. And we still get together and talk and chat and help each other when we can. But what the program did for me was, in the second year, I became confident enough to start applying for management jobs at Boeing, and also outside of the company. Don't tell anyone. But I became confident enough to start applying for these jobs, and I eventually obtained a position as a manager. And I noticed almost immediately that more of what I call the soft skills, because the first line manager at Boeing is more of a people leader than it is an actual technical or business leader. So all those soft skills we learned, like in introduction to professional management, and I believe it was managing people in corporations. All those soft skills we learned there really came into effect, and I've been utilizing all that information throughout my career. But I also noticed that if I am to progress, and I will be progressing to like a senior level, and hopefully up to even director level or beyond, all the other classes we took in management and marketing and finance will all come in handy, and it'll give me the confidence to do a great job and pursue further into my career. Yeah, and just it. I find I'm more confident now as a leader. I've also used the case study format, as you mentioned, Mark, in creating my presentations, because we also do trade studies in our design work to decide which path to take in our design. And I've used our kind of our blueprint that we used in the case studies to help create my arguments for which design to use. And I started also using some more marketing and finance information within my my presentations, and it's really helped get my point across and help drive the designs in the direction that we wanted. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I think it was a great decision to do the MBA, and I don't regret it. And I'm glad I went to Western. I've met some great professors, great cohorts and friends, and I think this is a great decision that'll carry me for the rest of my career. Thank you.
This is great. Thanks, Vince. Really appreciate this. So that's kind of all we have for tonight. I want to thank our guests, Scott, Ruby, Brent, Megan, and Vince, for taking their time out of their busy days, their busy lives to give back to the program. I think it says something else about the program that I didn't have to ask these people more. I didn't have to ask people twice. When I asked them, they said they'd be happy to do it. So I want to thank everyone from our amazing team and from all of us at Western Washington University and the MBA program. We want to thank you for joining us today. We also want to thank the WW Alumni Association for their partnership. And we'd like to thank all of you who choose to support the MBA program chose to support the MBA program by attending this webinar. We hope to see you next month for our next one-day MBA webinar. I'm looking at the calendar. It's probably going to be Wednesday, April 19th at 6 o'clock. And we will hope to see you there. So thanks for coming and have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you.